Julian was anxiously waiting outside the operating room for his first love, and I was separated from him by only a wall when Alara was wheeled out of the operating room. She weakly asked her husband, "Where is Sister Elena? Why didn't she come with you?" Upon hearing my name, Julian responded with disdain, "Don't worry about her, she's perfectly fine." He didn't know that Alara's new heart was mine. Chapter 1. The nurse covered my corpse with a white sheet, announcing the end of my life. Although I was clearly dead, for some reason, my soul remained hovering in mid-air. I watched as the doctors busied themselves in the operating room. I watched as Alara's vital signs finally stabilized and the doctors wheeled her out of the operating room instinctively. I floated in her direction. Julian was pacing at the door, his brows furrowed, his fingers unconsciously tapping the phone in his pocket. When he saw the doctor come out, he quickly stepped forward, his voice revealing his concern. "How is she?" The doctor stopped to address him. "The surgery was a success, thanks to the timely heart donation." Julian's face relaxed slightly, and he finally breathed a sigh of relief. "Do you know who the donor is? I would like to thank the family," he asked, catching up with the doctor. The doctor shook his head. "I'm sorry, Mr. Vance, the donor requested anonymity, so we cannot disclose that information." Julian nodded. "All right." If Julian knew it was my heart that was given to Alara, I wonder how he would react? Would he be happy that Alara could live well, or would he be saddened by my death? Thinking this, my chest suddenly felt a bit tight. How could I still feel something after death? I smiled self-deprecatingly. Soon after, my corpse, covered in a white sheet, was also wheeled out. I passed right by Julian in the hallway. For some reason, he suddenly looked back, appearing momentarily dazed. Then he turned back and followed Alara into the ward. Alara was still asleep, and Julian stayed by her bedside waiting. I floated between them like a third wheel. Realizing this, I retreated a bit. I suddenly remembered when Alara once yelled at me, "Elena, if it weren't for your scheming, I should have been the one to marry brother Julian." Julian had also said, "Elena, you should know why I married you." Bah, indeed. I was the third wheel in their relationship, but it didn't matter. I had already stepped back. Although it was involuntary. Chapter 2. Julian tightly held Alara's hand, his forehead gently resting on the back of her hand. I quietly watched them, not knowing how much time had passed before Alara's fingers twitched. Then, she slowly opened her eyes. "Brother Julian," her voice was still hoarse from just waking up. And as soon as she spoke, Julian's heart tightened. The moment Alara saw Julian, her eyes filled with tears. "Alara, you're awake." Julian quickly pressed the call button at the bedside to summon the doctor. "Brother Julian, I thought I would never see you again." Tears streamed down Alara's pale cheeks, making her look pitiful. Julian's eyes were full of pain as he gently patted Alara's hand. "No, everything will be fine now, you will recover." Seeing their affection, a surge of hatred rose within me. "Everything is fine for you. But what about me?" The doctor gave Alara a thorough examination. Everything was normal, and she only needed to stay in the hospital for a while longer before she could go home. After the doctor left, Alara cautiously asked, "Where is Sister Elena? Why didn't she come with you?" Hearing my own name, I snapped out of my thoughts. Julian's expression stiffened. He lowered his eyes, a hint of disgust in his voice. "Don't worry about her." Alara responded with an "oh" and lowered her head, saying nothing more, but I clearly saw a faint smile on her lips. It was the same old trick, deliberately mentioning me in front of Julian to test his reaction. Everyone could see her intentions except Julian. After dinner with Alara, Julian checked the time and said he needed to go home. Alara struggled to sit up, looking frightened. "Brother Julian, I don't want to stay here alone. I'm scared." He took out his phone and checked it. There were no new messages. Julian hesitated. How about I ask Mrs. Miller to come and stay with you? Mrs. Miller was our live-in housekeeper, responsible for Julian's and my meals. Can't you stay with me? Alara bit her lip, her voice growing softer. Julian was silent for a moment, then unlocked his phone and opened our chat. Our conversation had stopped 2 days ago. The last message was from me saying, "Let's get a divorce." He had replied, "Don't make trouble out of nothing." Chapter 3. Seeing Alara look at him, with red-rimmed eyes like a little white rabbit. Julian's heart softened. He sent me a message. "I won't be coming home tonight." I pursed my lips. I knew, but I couldn't reply to you anymore. Seeing Julian agreed to stay, Alara finally smiled. I knew brother Julian was the best to me. Julian patted her head, his voice full of affection. "I really can't say no to you." While he went to the water room to fetch water, Alara took out her phone. She opened her secondary WeChat account and sent a message to someone with a completely black profile picture. "Is everything handled?" The reply was almost instantaneous. "Don't worry. Everything is taken care of." A cold gleam flashed in Alara's eyes. "Dying and giving me her heart. At least she died for a good cause." So she not only knew I was dead but was also involved in my death. Looking at my semi-transfer body and the smug Alara, a surge of hatred rose within me, but there was nothing I could do. I could only watch her act sweet and innocent with Julian, living well in this world with my heart. When Julian returned with a thermos, he sat in the chair and began peeling an apple for Alara. However, he seemed a bit distracted. His gaze kept drifting towards his phone, which was set aside when the phone suddenly rang. It startled him, and the fruit knife nicked his fingertip. But he didn't bother to tend to the cut. Instead, he walked to the window to answer the call. "Hello, Elena." "Yes. I won't be coming home tonight." "What? She hasn't come back either?" Julian's face changed slightly. "I understand." He hung up the phone. Alara saw this and quickly wrapped his finger with a tissue. "What happened?" she asked. Julian shook his head. "Something came up at the company. I need to go." I was taken aback. The call was obviously from Mrs. Miller, so why was he lying? Alara didn't seem to notice Julian's odd behavior and nodded obediently. "All right, go ahead then." Julian picked up his suit and walked to the door. As he reached the door, he turned back and said, "Rest well. I'll come see you tomorrow." My heart stirred, and I decided to follow him out of the hospital. I wanted to see where he was going. Chapter 4. On the way home, Julian drove, his face serious, seemingly preoccupied. Whenever the light turned red, he would open our chat. Seeing no reply from me, he sighed and put the phone down. I was confused. What was he thinking? Was he expecting a reply from me? But he clearly despised me, to be honest. Our marriage was an accident. We were schoolmates, but in different years. He was 2 years ahead of me, and it was he who helped me when I was bullied in school. I had a secret crush on him, but never dared to disrupt his life. After Julian graduated, I heard he joined the family business and had a bright future. Knowing I wouldn't cross paths with him again, I buried those feelings deep inside. Not long after, my father fell into debt and committed suicide by jumping off a building. My mother couldn't handle the blow and soon passed away. To pay off the debt, I worked during the day and took on a night job as a hotel maid. The next time I saw Julian was at the hotel. He was drunk and unconscious, being carried into the presidential suite on the top floor, and I happened to be cleaning the restroom by chance. I overheard a phone conversation outside. "The drug is in. Hurry over. The room card is in the door gap." Then they left. I knew this wasn't something I should get involved in, but after confirming there was no one outside, I was about to leave. But before leaving, I glanced back and saw that the person lying on the bed was Julian. His face flushed. He frowned, his eyes closed, and his long lashes cast shadows on his face. Should I help or not? He once saved me. Could I just leave him drugged here? After hesitating for a moment, I took the room card from the door gap and locked the door from the inside. I poured a glass of water and walked to the bed, trying to wake Julian. When Julian opened his eyes, he was groggy. He looked at me and suddenly called out, "Elena?" I was stunned. Did he recognize me? Chapter 5. His expression quickly turned dazed again. "Senior, have some water and take a shower, okay?" I tentatively reached out and patted his shoulder, but Julian grabbed my hand and pulled me forcefully towards him. After a dizzying moment, I found myself pinned under him on the large bed. He leaned in close, his breath hot against my skin, burning away my reason. My heart pounded wildly. "Senior, please wake up." I kept pushing at his shoulders, but he was beyond reason. His scorching kiss landed on my lips. My mind went blank, and I heard the last thread of my sanity snap. Everything spiraled out of control. Faintly, I heard urgent knocking on the door. Julian cupped my face. "Elena, focus." I didn't know how long it lasted, but eventually, I fell into a deep sleep, waking only when daylight filled the room. Recalling last night, I sat up in fear, seeing Julian still asleep beside me. I wanted to sneak out, but my movements woke him. He squinted at me for a while, seemingly trying to recall what had happened the night before. "What happened?" His face grew darker, as if he remembered something. My heart tightened, and I stammered, It was an accident." But he didn't want to hear my explanation. He coldly said, "Wait for me outside," and went into the bathroom, putting on a bathrobe. I bit my lip, feeling endless grievances. Why did he treat me this way? It was his loss of reason, so why did I have to bear the consequences? When he came out, he threw a bank card onto the coffee table. 1 million. "Let's pretend nothing happened yesterday." I stared at the card, feeling a mix of emotions. With a hoarse voice, I said, "No need, nothing happened anyway." Then, I opened the door and left the room. In the elevator, my legs felt weak, barely able to stand, and tears finally streamed down my face. Chapter 6. Forget it. I'll just consider it as repaying him for saving me. After crying my heart out, I consoled myself to avoid any further trouble. I resigned from the hotel that very day. However, in my panic, I forgot to take the morning after pill the next month. When I realized my period was late, I bought a pregnancy test kit out of a faint hope, but the 2 read lines on the stick sent my mind reeling. To make matters worse, on the day I went to the hospital to schedule the procedure, I ran into Julian. He walked past me in a hurry, bumping into me, causing my papers to scatter everywhere. As he helped pick them up, he apologized but then froze when he saw my name in the abortion form. Julian looked up at me in disbelief, meeting my evasive gaze. "You're pregnant?" I stammered that it was none of his business and turned to leave. But he grabbed me. "We need to talk." Thus, under the arrangement of fate, I married him while carrying his child. He paid off all my high-interest debts. After marrying him, I found out about Alara, his childhood sweetheart. They had been engaged, but I had inadvertently come between them. However, the baby didn't survive for months into our marriage. Alara's constant provocations finally made me angry. For the first time, she called my unborn child a bastard. She called me a wretch without parents. I tried to stay calm, but she pushed me from the second-floor staircase. In excruciating pain, I saw her face whisked into a malicious smile, and she clutched her heart and fell to the ground. By the time Julian arrived at the hospital, our baby was gone. I sat on the bed in tears, but Julian's face was dark as he questioned me. "Do you know that Alara has a heart condition? She can't be stressed. What did you do to her?" I widened my eyes in disbelief. "I didn't do anything. She pushed me. Our baby is gone." But Julian pursed his lips, looking at me coldly. "Alara is a kind girl. She wouldn't do such a thing. Elena, you disappoint me." With that, he left without looking back. Chapter 7. Since then, the only bond between Julian and me vanished. He never touched me again. and his attitude towards me remained cold and distant. Elara was pleased with herself, playing the innocent neighbor girl in front of Julian while bullying and insulting me whenever he wasn't around. "Just wait, I will take him back," Elara said arrogantly, but I never thought she would use such means to take Julian back, and in the process, she also took my heart. I had already signed the divorce papers. I had planned that once Julian signed them, I would leave the city without hesitation. However, she had no intention of giving me that chance. Early one morning, Elara tricked me into leaving the house. She told me Julian was in trouble and that I should go to Riverside Road and wait for her there. Although Riverside Road was remote and I had some doubts, I still went because it was about Julian. To my surprise, when I arrived, I was met with a premeditated car accident. I don't know when Elara set her sights on my heart or how she managed to forge my consent form for donation, but as a person without family or connections, my disappearance wouldn't matter to anyone. She succeeded. Chapter 8. I closed my eyes for a moment as Julian suddenly braked the car. "Oh, we were home as soon as we entered." Mrs. Miller greeted us, saying to Julian, "Sir, Madame hasn't returned yet." Julian frowned. "Got it. When did she leave?" Mrs. Miller recalled. "It was around 800 in the morning. She got a call and then went out." Julian nodded, indicating for Mrs. Miller to continue with her work, then turned and went straight upstairs to my room. The room was just as I had left it. Julie unchecked my wardrobe and found all my clothes and luggage still there, which gave him some relief. He sat on the sofa, took out his phone, and sent me another message. "Where did you go? How strange. Why was he so intent on finding me today?" I watched him wait for a few minutes. Just as he was about to call me, his gaze fell on my desk. There were a few papers on it. Julian stood up and picked them up. They were the divorce papers I had signed. His face instantly darkened. Clutching the divorce papers tightly in one hand, he dialed my number with the other. "The number you have dialed is switched off. Please try again later." The cold automated message made his face even darker. My phone had been shattered in the car accident. How could I receive his call? Watching his unusual behavior, I found it amusing. He had been indifferent to my life and death before, but now he was so anxious after my disappearance. It was ironic. He took out his phone again and sent me another. "Stop being stubborn. Come back when you're done causing trouble." Reading those words, an inexplicable sadness welled up inside me. When would he finally realize that I had left him forever? Chapter 9. The next morning, Julian brought a meal prepared by Mrs. Miller to the hospital to visit Elara. "Brother Julian." Elara's eyes lit up the moment she saw him. "These are your favorite dishes. Eat more so you can get better quickly." Julian gently laid out the food on the small table. Seeing his attentive behavior made me catch my breath. "Oh right, I shouldn't be breathing anymore." In any case, I felt very sad because Julian never remembered what I liked to eat. Or rather, he didn't care about my preferences at all. I don't eat onions or spicy food. But the first time we had a meal with Elara, he chose at a restaurant because Elara liked spicy food. They chatted warmly, while I barely touched my food. Elara looked at me half-jokingly and said, "Sister Elena, don't you like the restaurant Brother Julian chose? Or do you just not want to eat with me?" Julian's gaze towards me turned somewhat inquisitive. "No, I'm just not very hungry today." I had to force myself to eat a few bites of the chili-drenched curry. I endured the discomfort to accompany them through the meal. But I ended up with a stomachache when I got home. It hurt so much that I had to go to the emergency room in the middle of the night. What did Julian say back then? "How can you be so delicate? You get like this from just one meal. Elara is perfectly fine." I was too pale and speechless, ending up staying in the hospital for half a month. I snapped out of my thoughts and saw Elara pouting and acting spoiled. "Brother, can you feed me? I don't want to move." Julian chuckled. He was about to agree, but seemed to remember something. His words changed too. "Elara, you're a grown-up now. You can't always have your brother feeding you. Alara was stunned, not expecting him to refuse. Floating nearby, I recalled the argument we had before. What do you take me for? And what do you take Alara for? Julian had replied, Alara and I grew up together. She's like family to me. Elena, stop being unreasonable. No matter how much like family you are both adults now. Shouldn't you keep a proper distance? If you want to be with her, I'll leave. Our marriage was an accident anyway. I had cried bitterly if it weren't for saving him. I shouldn't have had to go through all this. Julian hadn't expected me to be so upset and was momentarily flustered. Don't cry. I'll be more careful in the future. Could it be that he remembered my words and that's why he refused Alara? I couldn't help but wonder then. I felt I was being foolish. Julian didn't love me. Why would he care about what I said? Brother Julian, are you getting tired of me? Alara pouted, her eyes glistening with tears. Julian panicked and quickly grabbed a tissue to wipe her tears. No, don't get emotional. It's not good for your heart recovery. I will never get tired of you. Alara continued to cry while leaning her head on Julian's chest. Julian's body tensed. But he didn't push her away. Instead, he reached out and gently patted her back comfortingly. Watching Alara's pretense, my heart surged with hatred. She had harmed my child and me. Yet she could still act coy in front of Julian with my heart. Brother Julian is the best to me, Alara sobbed. If Elena hadn't seduced you, would you have married me? Brother Julian? Upon hearing this, Julian was silent for a moment. Alara, he said slowly, there are no ifs. What if Elena were gone? Would you be with me then? I'm no longer a burden. My heart condition is cured. I won't drag you down. Alara clutched his sleeve, her face stubborn. Julian sighed. Since I promised your parents I'd take care of you, I won't break that promise. On worry. Even though I'm married, I won't abandon you. I scoffed. Alara leaned against him, appearing obedient, but her eyes flashed with jealousy. After visiting Alara, Julian went to the office. After passing the reception, he suddenly turned back. Have you seen my wife these past 2 days? He asked. The receptionist thought for a moment. No. Julian's eyes darkened just as he was about to leave. The receptionist suddenly remembered. Mr. Vance. What is it? Julian turned back. Yesterday morning, your wife called. She said she couldn't reach you and asked if you had come to the office. You hadn't arrived yet, so I told her no. The receptionist recalled my call from yesterday morning. Yes. After receiving Alara's call, I had tried to contact Julian. His phone was off. I then called the office to confirm he hadn't gone to work before heading to Riverside Road. Hearing the receptionist's words, Julian looked puzzled. Yesterday morning? I didn't get her call, he muttered to himself as he walked into his office. Thinking about it, he took out his phone again and saw that I still hadn't replied. How long will this go on? Julian sighed, picked up the intercom. Secretary, please book a restaurant for tonight. A table for 2 for our wedding anniversary. Hearing this, I looked at him in disbelief. Chapter 11. Julian sent me another message. Elena, I've booked a restaurant. Can we have dinner together tonight? I felt a bitter ache in my heart, my nose stinging. Yes, today was our first wedding anniversary. But what was the point of treating me well now? In the afternoon, Alara called. Brother Julian, when are you coming to be with me? Julian frowned, his eyes fixed on his inactive phone. Brother? Alara called out, testing his attention when he didn't respond. Sorry, Alara. I'm a bit busy today and can't find time to visit you. He quickly answered, snapping back to reality. All right. Alara sounded disappointed. Would Julian really decline Alara to have dinner with me? I was a bit surprised. But knowing Alara, she wouldn't give up easily. Sure enough, not long after, the hospital called. A doctor said Alara had fainted and her condition was unstable, needing a family member to accompany her. A rare look of frustration crossed Julian's face, but he still drove to the hospital. "How's Elara?" Seeing Elara lying in bed with her eyes closed, Julian hesitated and asked the doctor beside him. The doctor replied, "Miss Elara suddenly got emotional and couldn't breathe, so she fainted." With no one else to stay with her, Julian had to wait for her to wake up. He kept checking the time on his phone, perhaps thinking about our dinner plans. But I couldn't keep the appointment after 2 hours. Elara slowly woke up. "Brother Julian." Seeing Julian, she started to tear up again. "Elara, I have dinner plans with Elena tonight. I really can't stay with you." Julian interrupted her. As soon as she woke up, Elara was taken aback. "With Sister Elena?" "Yes, she hasn't replied yet. But I can't leave her hanging in case she shows up." Julian nodded. Elara lowered her head, a subtle look of mockery flashing in her eyes. I guessed she must be thinking, "Elena is already dead, how could she show up for dinner? Rest well." Julian stood up to leave. "Brother Julian?" Elara sat up and tried to get out of bed but fell to the floor. "Elara." Julian turned back quickly, rushing to help her up in the process. His eyes caught sight of a small pendant that had fallen from the bed. It was the moon charm from my necklace. "What's this?" He picked it up and handed it to Elara. "It's my pendant." Alara's face changed slightly as she quickly put it away. Julian found the pendant familiar, but couldn't recall where he had seen it before. He helped Elara back into bed and immediately headed to the restaurant where we had planned to meet. But he waited there all night, and I never showed up. Chapter 12. The more Julian thought about it, the more something felt wrong. He finally couldn't resist contacting a private investigator. "Help me find out where Elena went." I floated beside him, watching his uneasy expression. To be honest, I was curious to how exactly had Elara dealt with me. The private investigator quickly responded, reporting that there weren't all records of me buying tickets at the airport, court, or train station. The last time surveillance captured me was when I hailed a taxi in front of our house. Reading the investigator's message, Julian felt a sinking feeling in his heart. A hint of panic appeared on his face. The taxi was legitimate, and the driver was quickly contacted. The driver said he had dropped me off near Riverside Road but knew nothing more. Riverside Road? It's so remote. What was she doing there? Julian recalled something Mrs. Miller had mentioned. Around 8:00 in the morning, she got a call and then went out. He immediately ordered, "Find a way to check her all records. See who called her." Perhaps clinging to a sliver of hope, he didn't report it to the police. Checking the call records wasn't difficult. A last call was from Elara. Julian's expression was as if he had been struck by lightning. "What?" He abruptly stood up, knocking over the coffee cup on his desk. Warm coffee spilled all over the documents. But he didn't notice. Julian finally remembered why he hadn't received my call. He had been at the hospital with Elara at that time. Elara had asked for his phone to play games, and he checked the surveillance footage again, though not obvious. I was wearing a necklace with a moon pendant. At that moment, all color drained from Julian's face. He contacted the private investigator again. "Find out who donated the heart to Elara." I was amazed by Julian's sharpness at that moment. His shock and pain seemed genuine for once. His usually cold and indifferent face showed a hint of regret. The investigator's email quickly arrived. A donor was Elena. Julian closed his eyes slowly. His lips were completely devoid of color. "So it was you," he murmured. I didn't know if he recalled the day before yesterday at the hospital when he looked back at me covered in a white sheet as he followed Elara. Chapter 13. Julian sped to the hospital. At 120 miles per hour, he pushed open the door to Elara's room and walked in. "Brother Julian, why are you here so late?" Elara woke up, frowning slightly. "Where is Elena?" Julian's voice carried no emotion. "Sister Elena? I don't know." Elara blinked, feigning innocence. My patience is limited, Alara. Where did you take Elena? Julian took a few steps forward, towering over Alara sitting on the bed. That moon pendant was on Elena when she disappeared. If you really don't know, why was it with you? Alara bit her lip, about to lie again. Julian grabbed her wrist. Whose heart is it? Is it Elena's? Tell me. Seeing no way out, Alara dropped her act. Yes, it's hers. She's dead. Hearing her words, Julian's eyes darkened. If she's dead, I want to see her body. Where is she? Alara laughed as if hearing a funny joke. Are you seeking justice for her now? Elena seduced you, got pregnant, and used despicable means to marry you, becoming an obstacle between us. Does it matter where she died? I took her heart, and now I can live well without Elena. You'll marry me, right? Her expression turned manic. Whether she's dead or alive, I'll never marry you. I've always seen you as a sister, never loved you. Where is she? Julian shouted in anger. Alara's face was seared with resentment. I burned her to ashes and scattered them in the sea. I'll never find her. The look of pain crossed Julian's eyes. He gritted his teeth. But tears still fell. He actually cried for me. I was a bit surprised. Then the police, who had been standing at the door, walked in. Alara's eyes widened. You called the police? Julian looked at her with nothing but hatred. Of course. But I won't let you die after all. The heart beating in you is still Elena's. Chapter 14. Alara's words were probably true. She had taken care of everything so thoroughly that my body was completely gone, but Julian didn't believe it. He frantically searched everywhere for my body. If I could speak, I would tell him to stop. Late affection is worth less than grass. He never loved me, so why act so pained now? Until he took out a photo album from the study. The first page held my student ID photo. I was stunned. That was my freshman year student ID, which I had lost. I never expected the photo to be with Julian. Elena, I'm sorry. If I had treated you better, if I hadn't cared so much about Alara, giving her false hope, would everything have been different? Julian stared at the photo in a daze. Then he placed the photo and my moon pendant into a small box. Elena, you probably don't know, but I've always loved you. His eyes were red as he hugged the box, muttering to himself, even though you didn't love me, I kept you by my side, fearing you'd leave, so I kept testing on hurting you, ultimately causing your death indirectly. I was wrong? He loved me? I was bewildered. Was it because my soul was losing its emotions that I felt nothing seeing his pain? Julian bought a plot of land, burying the box with the photo and pendant in it. It was my cenotaph from that day on. He visited my grave daily with a fresh bouquet of lilies, sitting there for half the day drinking and rambling about the past. It turned out Julian knew I wasn't the one who drugged him, and the drug didn't affect him enough to lose all reason. He realized it was me, undecided to go along with it. But afterward he couldn't face me, so he wanted to cool down unexpectedly. I quit and disappeared for a month. He searched for me everywhere until he found me at the hospital, about to have an abortion, which made him desperate to take me back and marry me. Regarding Alara pushing me down the stairs, he truly believed it was an accident. Alara's parents had done him a favor, and before they passed away, they entrusted her to his care. There was never an engagement between them, as Alara claimed. Julian just didn't want to stress Alara's weak heart, so he protected her. But no matter what he said, the harm he caused me was real, and it's something I can't forgive. Chapter 15. Alara on the hitman. She hired were both cotton sentenced to life imprisonment. Julian used his influence to make her life in prison miserable. She repeatedly tried to contact Julian through the guards, but he refused to see her. Soon after, Alara committed suicide in prison. When the news of her death reached him, Julian was at my grave, gently cleaning the tombstone with a damp cloth. Dead? As long as her heart is returned. Julian answered the call, his voice icy on his way back. Julian drove distractedly, eventually crashing into a speeding truck that ran a red light at a turn. Ending it this way is good to see you in the next life. At the moment of impact, I heard him murmur softly, his hands leaving the steering wheel. There was no surprise. Julian eyed instantly, and I, watching my body become increasingly transparent, knew my time had come. If there is a next life, I only wish for a peaceful and happy life, never to meet Julian again. But when I opened my eyes, I was back in the hotel restroom outside. Someone was on the phone. The drug is in, hurry over. The room card is in the door gap. That familiar conversation. I was reborn. I stared at myself in the mirror in amazement. I was back to being a hotel maid. Outside should be the drug Julian. After the people outside left the room, I quickly stepped out. Julian lay on the bed, semi-conscious, recalling everything from my past life. I decisively opened the door and left without looking back. Let go of the savior complex and respect others' destinies. In this life, I will live well for myself.